Johto is coming, and so is Unova, I suspect. But which one will be first, and how do we know this is going to happen? Well, let's start with the most obvious thing. Pokémon has always done remakes, revamps, and revisits. Originally through third versions, and then through full-on remakes. Recently, they've been doing prequels like Legends Arceus, and even multiverse kind of stuff like Let's Go and Rainbow Rocket, but we'll talk about all that later. Let's look at some other clues that Johto and Unova are both coming. Well, Unova and Johto are the regions that we've gone the longest without seeing some sort of new version of. HeartGold SoulSilver came out in 2010 and Black and White 2 came out in 2012. So basically they're due some sort of new content now as they're both over a decade old. Legends Arceus provided some big clues as well. Two of the starters in these games were Cyndaquil from Johto and Oshawott from Unova. Then, if you look at the new forms that Hisui introduced, they gave us evolutions for Ursaring, Quillfish, and Stantler, all famous Johto Pokémon. They also gave us a new Sneasel form, another famous Pokémon that debuted in Johto, and they introduced Kleavor, which is essentially an alternate version of one of Johto's biggest mascots, Scizor. On the Unova side of things, we got an evolution for Basculin, a new Braviary, a new Lilligant, a new Zorua and Zoroark form, and for both regions of course, Enamorus, which is a new addition to the Unovan Forces of Nature legendary trio, plus new forms of Typhlosion and Samurott. So clearly the developers had both of these regions in mind at this time. Fast forward a few months later, and Scarlet and Violet came out. Guess what? We got new evolutions for Dunsparce and Girafarig, paradox forms of Domphal, Misdreavus, Tyranitar, and Delibird, not to mention a new form of Wooper and its evolution. Plus the gym leaders had Terratediursas and Sudowoodos with Sunflora themed gym tasks. And on the Unova side, we got an evolution for Bisharp, plus paradox forms of Volcarona, Hydreigon, and Amoonguss. We are being drip-fed Johto and Unova content. Comparatively, we have had very little from other regions, a few from Kanto and Hoenn, and none from anywhere else. And that's not all. We've had teasers of paradox forms of Johto's legendary beasts and Unova's Swords of Justice, which eventually culminated in the raid events for Paradox Suicune and a Paradox Virizion. And I feel they will expand on that in the DLC. So, I think we've made quite a case there that Johto and Unova have both been heavily in mind when Game Freak have been developing the last few games. Even going back to Sword and Shield, they reintroduced Apricorns and Apricorn Balls in the DLC of those games, which of course originated in Johto. But maybe that's it. Maybe this time this is the service we're getting for these regions. Just giving love to the Pokemon from those generations and no new games. But I don't think so. Often, towards the end of a Pokemon game specifically, we do see inspiration for the next upcoming project. Think of Lily when she says she's sailing to Kanto at the end of Sun and Moon, and then lo and behold, Let's Go was the next main series game that came out. Even visually at the end of Alola, they had a mini wild area on the last island which definitely gave vibes of the wild area we eventually saw in Sword and Shield. Then there's Jasmine appearing towards the end of Diamond and Pearl, which was a teaser for HeartGold SoulSilver. There are plenty of examples of this. So you do see these ideas sort of spilling into the next generation at the end of the design stages of a Pokemon game. With that being said, take a look at the Soccerat Trail. It's an area you are most likely to visit once you've finished everything else within the main quests of Scarlet and Violet. And it has this golden autumnal aesthetic to it, like you see around Ho-Oh's tower in Ecruteak. And besides the Shrine of Ting-Lu, guess which Pokemon are predominant here? Heracross, Forretress, Sudowoodo, basically loads of Johto Pokemon. Okay, but you're still not convinced Johto and Unova are coming. Let me leave you with one final point. I recently watched a Tyranitar Tube video, shout out to his brilliant speculation content by the way, where he was looking into the story of how Area Zero and Terrapagos might unfold in the DLC for Scarlet and Violet. He basically concluded that there are two very likely themes as to what's going on with the whole terastallizing phenomenon and the stories of Heath venturing down to Area Zero in the Scarlet and Violet books. The two themes are dreams or time travel. Guess where those two ideas are super prevalent? You guessed it. Dreams are a huge theme in Unova. You have Mana and Mashana, the dream Pokemon, which play a big part in the early story of Black and White. You have the Dream Balls and the Dream World, which were a whole thing in Unova. And then time travel. Who was the original time travel Pokemon? Celebi. And we already know time travel is a big theme in Scarlet and Violet. Plus the speculation about the Paradox forms being imagined Pokemon from another time, basically combining both of these ideas. And to drill this point home, the DLC for Scarlet and Violet is split into 2 parts. The first part takes place in Kitakami, inspired by Japan. And we already know that a version of Japan exists within the Pokemon universe, currently comprising of Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh. So this could easily be closely tied with Johto. The second part of the DLC takes place on this sort of artificial island, which is the location of the Blueberry Academy. The word blueberry being English, and the only English speaking regions we know of are Galar, Alola, and you guessed it, Unova. So it's very likely this could be situated near Unova. So, will we get Legends Celebi or Legends Kyurem? That's a debate for another video. But the short answer is no, because I think Pokemon like to rebrand and repackage things to make them look new. Even the Colosseum sequel wasn't called Colosseum 2, it was called XD Gale of Darkness, and Pokemon Stadium evolved into Pokemon Battle Revolution after 3 iterations. So basically I think they'll go with some new, fresh idea, like how the whole ancient Sinnoh thing surprised us in the best way when they did the Gen 4 revamps last year. Will it be one game combining Gen 2 and 5? Or separate games? I don't know, but I think they could be more connected than we think. Anyway guys, that's all for today. Let me know what you think about this, and please subscribe as we aim for 600 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, love you gang.